to the Game Professors podcast, where the students have taken over and we profess our love and hate for all things video games. Now, we touched on this last week, but let's get into why we wanted to start this podcast. Heru?
Yeah, we're on course number 3 at this point, and in both of the previous courses, we've gotten close to or past 90 minutes. And that's while we were leaving content on the table that we both wanted to talk about. It's clear that we like to talk about video games and game-adjacent topics, and it's obvious we can do it for hours.
Oh, most definitely. I know when we would meet for lunch to catch up, we could spend the entire day at the restaurant discussing all matter of things, not just games. And I would always feel bad for the waitstaff at the restaurant as we would just sit there and the sun would start to go down and we've only ordered our initial round of food while we've talked the whole time. So I would always end up leaving a little bit on the tab just for their trouble.
Definitely. That's why I always just planned for it to be an all-day affair. At the end of the day, my partners were never really happy about it. And I mean, it's one of the reasons that I suggested we should just do something like this.
Yeah, it's why I was absolutely on board from the start. It was fortuitous that I had already tried to do something like this previously. So I already had the theming, and it still fit really well between the two of us because we talked about how we had actually done some of this stuff in college, but you took it way further than I ever did. So you're definitely more of an authority on it than I am. But I'm just glad that we could kind of just slide right into a skeleton that I already had for this podcast idea. And I even had a couple of the accounts. So I only had to remake almost all of them because it was so old at that point.
Yeah, for sure. It took us a while to start. I mean, I think we were planning for probably 5 weeks or so. But at this point, I'm glad I at least feel like we've kind of gotten into the swing of things. I always have tons to say about certain things, at least.
Well, I think that's definitely both of us. There are some things that we're very passionate about, and we could absolutely give a tornado a run for its money on the long-winded rant. But, you'll hear plenty of those as we go along. Anyways, let's get into the lecture lowdown. So the lecture lowdown is all the things that we want to kind of touch on for the podcast today, and some of the smaller announcements. And in today's course, we're going to take a look at the Microsoft handheld and an AC game that will never be. We'll discuss the launch of Battlefield 6 and the associated TPM 2.0 requirements, and a massive Unity vulnerability that was quote-unquote finally patched. Then we will finish with some of the reflections on the games that Heru has been recently enjoying. And with that, let's get into the announcements. First, the Asus ROG Xbox Ally launched this last week, and the initial impressions are favorable. A lot of people are praising the ergonomics, controls, the cooling, and a few other things with that kind of Xbox sheen on the software. Although there are definitely some concerns that aren't limited to the lack of an OLED screen, and some of the more in-depth reviews will kind of come out as time goes along. So as we start to get that information, we'll definitely kind of bring that back into whatever course we're on that week.
Definitely. I look forward to potentially getting my hands on one of those. I've been thinking about getting one of these or something similar to it since ultimately, my Switch died. I think it died like a year and a half ago at this point. That outside of that, speaking of the Switch, the Nintendo Switch 2 had some amazing sales numbers with a whopping 2.4 million US sales, somehow outpacing both the original Switch and the PlayStation 4 launch trajectories by 5%. Now, 5% is not a large number, but when you're talking about millions, it turns into a big number. Globally,
sure.
The console sold 3.5 million units in its first 4 days, making it Nintendo's fastest launch in hardware history. The console is selling 77% faster than the original Switch at the same stage in its life cycle.
That's just nuts to me, considering how fast the Switch actually sold. You couldn't find that thing forever.
Yeah, it's very true. And like even if you look on Nintendo's website right now, the Switch 2 is out of stock.
Yeah.
So good luck finding one. But speaking of other Switch related things, Pokemon Legends ZA had a massive alleged leak online by the same hacker that was responsible for the 2024 Terra leak, affecting multiple Pokemon titles and Game Freak data. In this leak was some source code and some beta builds. Namely, there were some beta builds around PC. And of course, 3 Nintendo Switch beta builds. And it revealed some scrapped features that, most of us won't really care about, but more detailed and properly modeled windows and balconies in the in-game buildings, which were very simplified in the final release.
I'm shocked. Sorry, before you go on, I saw this just today. The budget for this game was like 13 million, which is nuts for me on a flagship title that I mean, you're only putting 13 million in it, but I guess you can do that when you expect to always sell a bunch of copies no matter what quality game you put out.
You're not wrong. I mean, I would be pretty excited to see like a PC build of it, and like it may actually cause me to buy it. Who knows? But I'm not gonna buy a Nintendo Switch 2, a vastly inferior console in comparison to the PlayStation 5 and the Xbox X and S.
Or the handhelds we just talked about.
Right, or literally the handhelds that we just talked about, which are going to be sold for roughly the same price.
Well,
now, well, I mean, $500.
The most expensive Xbox handheld's $1,000.
Sure, but the not most expensive one is only $500.
That's $600. It was going to be $500.
I thought it saw $500, but whatever. Doesn't matter. But imagine, right?
Okay.
You had artists create gorgeous windows, balconies, and who knows what else in the game. And you have to say, quote, "You've made an absolutely gorgeous model for these buildings, but it has too many polygons for the system that it's primarily built for."
You know what that's equivalent to?
Make it smaller.
That is like me picturing my mom filling the entire fridge with my sister's artwork, and there's about a Post-it note's worth of space, and I give her a piece of macaroni art, and she goes, no, this is too big, and instead hands me a Post-it note and says, make it with this instead. That's what I'm picturing.
Some other things that were included in this leak were gameplay videos and screenshots from the beta build showcasing in-progress features, mechanics, and minigames cut from the final game. Many aspects differ significantly from the official launch version, which, I mean, who's surprised, highlighting the game's evolution during development.
Yeah, some of the copies actually just straight up came out early. And between that and the leaks, I've seen some of the Mega Evolution battles, and I don't know if it's a fair comparison to compare it directly to the Power World boss battles, considering they're technically two different things. But I would have to say the Power World boss battles definitely seem to be way more of an interesting fight. And you can see the similar mechanics, right? There's one big enemy with a lot of health. You can call out your Pokemon / pals to fight the larger pooled health enemy. And I don't know, just an empty, spacious ring just seems... I mean, I hate to say it, it just seems lazy to me. And I mean, you did talk about the system's capabilities. It would just be so sad if that's just the limit of what they can do with a Pokemon game. I just can't believe that to be the case.
Yeah, I mean... if you're gonna sue the company that clearly iterated on the thing that you have made your flagship as a company, or one of the things that you've made your flagship, and not take on some of the things that they iterated on. I think that would just be very lazy, but it sounds like they did that and made it worse.
Yeah, definitely. I I hope that Power World sticks around because clearly competition is always good, and so having something to compare Pokemon to rather than nothing is hopefully at least going to push the envelope on the Pokemon side to evolve so that we get something a little bit more interesting than the same game with a new setting and new Pokemon every, few years. Now,
That would be nice.
again, I'm not coming from a Pokemon fanboy standpoint, so I definitely understand there's some people that are happy with the title as is, but I do think the rest of us would like to see something a little bit more interesting and new.
Yep.
But that's just me. Anyways, moving on to the next topic. Mind's Eye, the studio Build a Rocket Boy, which is the name of the studio that created Mind's Eye. Fame, or I guess infamously, the game that came out this year that was supposed to be the GTA killer, which ended up just being a terrible, horrendous, buggy mess. Did you ever see video on that game?
I didn't even know this thing existed until you
Oh,
brought it up.
bro, you should look up some video for this. I remember some of the initial trailers that came out, and people were like excited because it looked interesting. And obviously, we haven't had a GTA game for over a decade, and the next one's delayed, so people were excited for this. It looked like it was going to be interesting, and it was a buggy mess, and the the story or lack thereof was disappointing, and it ended up just being meme bait, right? You could just make fun of all the ridiculous clips that were coming out of it. It was awful. Anyways, it's actually the studio is actually apparently facing some legal action from union workers, specifically the Game Workers Branch of Independent Workers of Great Britain, end quote.
That's a
Over,
mouthful.
yeah, it definitely is. Over alleged mishandling of the layoffs that followed the disastrous launch of the game on June 10th. The union accused the studio of failing to conduct fair consultation ahead of redundancies, multiple cases of unfair dismissal, long-standing disrespect and mistreatment of staff, poor transparency and communication with the radical work changes made without staff input, excessive overtime, including mandatory 8 extra hours per week in the 4 months up to Mind's Eye's release, and then time off in lieu, which is pay time off instead of overtime, was not effectively granted due to the ongoing high priority work demands. Redundancy process errors such as misinformation, incorrect notice periods, and misallocation of employees to teams, potentially leading to wrongful dismissals, which, to be fair, neither of us work in the UK or have ever worked in the UK unless you leave some sort of double life that I don't know about.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, okay, perfect. Well, so then great. If you could go into UK work law and workers' rights, I would greatly appreciate that. But clearly, there's quite a lot here that probably at least has some sort of merit in a case just because of the amount of stuff that's in here, but that's just pure speculation on my part.
Oh, for sure. I mean, we have both been laid off from the same company. I won't say which, but we had British workers in that same company. They didn't get laid off.
you're you're not wrong. We were definitely the more expendable side of it.
Yeah,
And this
exactly.
was a European company, so yeah, I mean, yeah, it's unfortunate for us specifically, but anyways, it's unfortunate for all of these people as well. The open letter was from former and remaining employees. An estimated 250 to 300 UK staff were laid off, and it blames the layoffs on the studio leadership, ignoring experiences and contributing to one of the worst game launches of this decade. Now, I personally don't know how much this contributed specifically, these types of working conditions contributed to the quality of the game. I'm sure it 100% heavily affected it, but just for what I saw from the game, I I would say that there had to be other massive problems too. I don't know if it was 100% of all leadership. So from start to finish, design to abuse of workers and everything in between. But that game was just so bad that there had to be so much wrong going on behind the scenes. It was bad. I mean, that game looked like it needed another 3 to 4 years of work, to be honest.
That wouldn't really surprise me. And we can get into this more with the Unity stuff, but yeah, like it makes me wonder though, is this game going to be better than the anime GTA that we saw?
Mind's Eye? No, Mind's Eye. Well, so I mean, it's a cautionary tale, right? I mean, this would be a great list of bait and switch games that we should come up with at some point. But there's so many cases of early release trailers and quote unquote gameplay that is shown off, looks great, looks amazing. You're like, there's so many fun mechanics. It looks gorgeous. And then we get the actual product or something closer to release is shown, and you're like, this can't be the same thing. I just don't believe it.
Yeah, that's fair. Going back to some of the allegations here, I mean, a lot of states in the U.S. are right-to-work states, and like, you're not really going to get an unfair dismissal trial. Good luck with that.
Nope.
However, the mandatory 8 extra hours thing and time off in lieu of, which was not granted, yeah, you'd probably win that lawsuit.
Oh, for sure. When it comes to overtime or paid time off in the States, there are quite a few protections for that, at least. So that's definitely a big no-no here, and I would imagine clearly would be the same in the UK. So they've got some things to answer for. The letter demanded from the co-CEOs Leslie Benzies and Mark Gerhard, and apologies if I got those wrong, specifically a public apology and proper compensation for laid-off employees, option for employees on redundancy notice to either work notice or take payment in lieu, meaningful efforts to improve company conditions and processes, including acknowledging the IWGB union, commitment to using external partners for future redundancies to avoid unfair treatment. To be honest, I'm not saying I have a problem with any of that, but considering how awful this game was, I just don't know how much of a future this studio has.
That's very accurate. I would be very surprised if it does have a future at all.
Yeah, well, we'll see. Hopefully the workers, if they were officially treated in this terrible way, hopefully they get their just compensation. But other than that, Heru, I think you have an update from something we discussed last week.
Absolutely. On the flip side of something that does actually have a future, the League of Legends Worlds play-in stage happened, and it reached an all-time peak viewership of 2.5 million, approximately.
And that's a lot.
It is a lot. That number primarily originates from YouTube, which was 840,000 of its viewers.
Jeez.
And while the event was held in China, those viewership numbers exclude Chinese exclusive platforms, which means
Seriously?
That viewership has to be higher.
I mean, I would definitely imagine, yeah, it's got to be pretty big in China.
And my last, 36 hours have basically been me watching League of Legends, which is not surprising. But
so before you go too far, I just want to interrupt with, just because I quickly looked this up. So to give viewers context for how big those numbers are, here in the United States, ESPN and TNT average between 1.25 million and 1.32 million viewers an NBA game. So just to give you kind of something to compare those numbers to.
I know it's been rumored in the past, and I have no basis on whether or not this is true, but I know it was rumored in the past that Worlds has a larger viewership than the NFL Super Bowl.
It depends on the Chinese numbers and the numbers they're getting from around the world, but it could definitely be the case.
Right.
They would require a massive number of people, though, because the Super Bowl is hundreds of millions of people.
Yeah, that's fair.
So, but, there's in China alone, there's over 1 billion people, so maybe.
Yeah. That's true. As of right now, the VOD for the T1 versus IG match that took place as the opening game has 2.2 million views.
Nice.
Following that, the Swiss stage, which is basically just a bunch of best of ones, so no, Fearless doesn't really come into effect in that aspect, still had another 2.1 million views, which is kind of surprising. Yeah. I mean, T1 always brings in a ton of numbers, right? They just do. That's just kind of the reality. And I don't understand why. I've never really been a fan of T1. I'm sure someone would be mad at me for saying that, but whatever. I will say, though, that Swiss stage had a massive upset. The third seed of LTA, which is the North American and South American leagues, took down the first seed of the LPL league, which is the Chinese league, which, for those who don't know, the LPL is considered to be pretty much tied for the first best region with the Korean league, the LCK. So the third best took out the first best of a significantly stronger region.
I mean, everyone loves a good underdog story, right?
You're not wrong. I do think, though, at the end of the day, the conclusion for why this is so popular right now is because people are excited for Fearless.
I mean, look, you look at any sports league around the world, and anytime you have, the GOAT, right? The greatest of all time, it always brings in new viewers. Any league, pick any league, right? You could go as far back as Babe Ruth. You could go to the 90s in the 80s and 90s with Gretzky and Michael Jordan. You could look at, LeBron and Tom Brady. I mean, anytime you have those GOATs, they're going to bring in more viewers just because of how good they are, and people love to see good talent. So when you have somebody like Fearless, which I'm just taking you on your word, you're going to get that similar type of effect.
Fearless is the draft style.
Oh, wow. Well, then just ignore all of that. I thought it was a person.
No, it's all good. So the reason that the T1 tends to bring in, you're actually correct, but the name is Faker. So
that's
T1
who I was thinking of. Oh, God, yeah. I have heard of Faker. I was like, isn't there a guy? Oh,
yeah,
God.
There's a guy.
Okay. There's a guy. There's always a guy.
Yeah. I mean, everyone calls him the GOAT. I've watched many a mid laner dismantle him, so whatever. At the end of the day, though, yeah, you're right. Faker and T1 in general tends to bring in a lot of viewership. However, they've fallen off. They were the fourth seed coming into this year's Worlds, and I want to say they lost the last two Worlds, but I could be wrong. I'd have to look up the numbers, and I'm too lazy.
And you'll give us a full breakdown when it comes to the conclusion.
Oh, yeah.
But get us back on track, Fearless, before I derailed us.
Oh, yeah. So Fearless is the type of draft style. We talked about it last week a little bit.
Oh, yeah. That fun, unique way that I liked.
Yeah. So it actually, like, when you pick a champion, it's banned for the remainder of the series.
I think it's an exciting way to do it. I already mentioned it last week. I think it's the type of thing, especially when you have so many different champions / heroes, that it also kind of brings in some of the lesser known metas, right? Or just the lack, it gets rid of the metas essentially. So, but I went over that last week. So I look forward to maybe seeing some highlights. You'll have to give me some of like the best stuff to go watch.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Well, on that note, that'll finish the lecture lowdown, and let's get into a new segment, Lost and Found. So, Lost and Found, it's time to rummage through the box and see what gaming treasures got left behind, from canceled projects to cut content that never saw the light of day. Sometimes the most interesting stories are about the games that never were.
That's very true. There are plenty of stories that pop up throughout the year, projects that never see the light of day, and interesting content that never made it to release, or even just something that was secretly hidden away in a game, namely, you know,
Yeah.
Skyrim. We found a ton of those.
Or those Easter
and
eggs.
have been recently discovered.
Absolutely. You always see those Easter eggs from even like, 90s or 2000 games where it's like somebody finally found this thing, and the developer comes out and he's like, I didn't think anybody was going to find that thing. So I do look forward to talking about those little pieces. They always bring a smile to my face. But specifically in this segment, we actually have a big news leak about a canceled Ubisoft project for a post-Civil War Assassin's Creed game. And I think it's crazy that we're kind of hearing about this now after the merger. But apparently a lot of current, or specifically at least 5 current and former employees got together and they talked to the press and they described the project and its cancellation. Of course, Ubisoft did not comment on the story. It was led in part by longtime Assassin's Creed developer Ubisoft Quebec, and the project had cleared the initial leadership approval and was actually in the concept/pre-production phase before cancellation. Although that also means it didn't necessarily get too far down the production line. The early stage Assassin's Creed installment was set during the American Civil War and the Reconstruction era, i.e., 1865 to 1877. It would have been the series' most modern timeline to date, although I did see some initial talk that it might have had like an introduction that was before the Civil War, before we got to the Reconstruction period, so it probably would have spanned that whole time period. The protagonist would have been a formerly enslaved black man who moves west to build a new life, and then is recruited by the Assassin Brotherhood to return to the South and pursue justice as he confronts the rise of the Ku Klux Klan. It was reported canceled in July of 2024 by management in Ubisoft Paris, with Paris citing online backlash to the reveal of Yasuke, the Black Samurai in the latest Assassin's Creed Shadows game, and concern over the increasingly tense U.S. political climate, described as, quote, too political in a country too unstable, end quote, by one of those former employees. It was the perceived impact and community reactions, as internal sources expressed frustration viewing the cancellation as capitulating to controversy, and public response actually kind of went both ways. You either had people that were talking about how, yeah, Ubisoft probably doesn't necessarily have the chops to handle this type of story, and you had others that were lamenting the cancellation of this story from this type of time period. I can see both. It doesn't really matter at this point because it's never going to happen. However, I think what this does kind of illustrate is a growing risk aversion from Ubisoft in general, as they've had financial setback after financial setback. They've had multiple cancellations of properties recently and failures, including Skull and Bones, famously hundreds of millions spent on a game that was just supposed to be Black Flag Seas only, which everyone would have wanted, except they gave us a terrible version of that. Sorry, I could go on a whole rant for that whole game. Such a disappointment. And the canceled free-to-play shooter The Division Heartland, just to name a couple. I also personally wonder, and tell me if I'm wrong, but this just kind of seems like it's retreading ground, considering Assassin's Creed 3 Liberation featured a black female lead, and throughout the game, the main protagonist battles Templar conspiracies, including government officials and covert slave trading operations. And then, of course, we had Assassin's Creed 3, which explored the colonial America during the Revolutionary War. So I'm not sure Assassin's Creed needed to go here. There's just so many more interesting projects that I want to say that they could have done rather than this specific story, just because they've kind of already been in this similar type of scenario.
Yeah, that's entirely fair. I I agree with you. I do think it is probably just more of the same. However, at a certain point, you're gonna have to go back and do stories that have already happened, right? Um, and maybe you've already explored colonial America during the Revolutionary War, but what if we explored that from a different angle, like a completely different side, right?
You're
So,
sorry, you can continue.
so I mean, I think that's just kind of the reality, right? Unless you do what Call of Duty did, which is start making your games in the future, which I don't think anybody really wants to see that. Like Assassin's Creed in the future sounds kind of boring to me.
Okay, hold on though, because here's the thing: A, Assassin's Creed 3 didn't actually sell that well, so you're also
Fair.
kind of retreading around on a game that already didn't do well for you necessarily. But I don't think you have to go to the future. The problem is there's so many interesting things in history that aren't necessarily, sci-fi future that you could do for the Assassin's Creed games. I mean, what about World War One? Like, you're telling me uh there's no interesting story to tell about somebody who's behind enemy lines, right? Who's, you know, there's the. I mean, I don't know if you know, but World War One, kind of one of the biggest things that kicked off was the assassination of, I believe, Archduke Ferdinand, right?
Mhm.
Like, I don't know. That seems like the perfect intro for an Assassin's Creed game to me. Like,
Fair.
and the unintended consequence is, all these treaties and alliances coming into effect after that assassination, and you now have to deal with the fact that you actually started World War One, and now you're trying to deal with it behind the scenes. That seems like an infinitely interesting story to me. You're talking about all kinds of time periods throughout Chinese rich history. I again, Three Kingdoms or anything else, even just the Mongolian Wars. Like, there's all kinds of
Hmm.
interesting periods that you could go do. I I, look, you could talk about if they wanted to go with kind of the indigenous person or revolution. What about the Spanish and Incas? The conflicts of those time periods. So that's going a little further back, but I still think that's something interesting. Or in America in that old time period without being the Revolutionary War, what about dealing with something about the Salem witch trials, right? You could have the Templars being the one declaring people witches.
I'd play
And
that.
what's that? You play that?
I'd play
Yeah.
it. I would play it. I
I mean,
haven't touched an Assassin's Creed game in a very long time,
yeah.
but I would play that one.
But I think that's my point here is there's so many interesting periods throughout history, and I haven't even mentioned like all of the ones that we could get into. But there's so many interesting periods that they could go to without necessarily retreading the same ground and actually have some new and interesting settings without going sci-fi. So I'm not necessarily on the side of uh lamenting about missing out on a Civil War Assassin's Creed game, because I was one of the people that played Assassin's Creed 3 and was largely disappointed. Honestly, the only thing that kept me interested in the Assassin's Creed series was Black Flag, but after that, it quickly died off again. So to go into some kind of just a little bit extra background for the Ubisoft Studios issues at this moment, there are two games, two projects that I could find that aren't part of an existing series, a remake, or a sequel. One of them's Project Altera, which is supposed to be a life simulator in a similar style of Animal Crossing. and Project Crest, which is a World War II extraction shooter, which I'm sure we don't have enough extraction shooters in the market at the moment, considering Arc Raiders comes out in a few weeks as well. But I think that's kind of one of the problems that you're seeing here with Ubisoft is, where's the new stuff? Where's the new ideas? Even in an Assassin's Creed game, where's the new ideas? You're doing all the same stuff over and over again. It's either AC, Far Cry, Tom Clancy, a remake, or a sequel.
Yeah, I mean, you're 100% right. But on top of that, even these two projects that you just mentioned, they're just rehashes of the same crap that other people have already done.
Yeah, 100%.
Like, be unique, be creative, do something.
Be better, is what you're saying?
Yeah, exactly. Be better, be creative, take risks.
I mean, I agree with you. It just makes me disappointed because I grew up with that initial announcement for the first Assassin's Creed game, and we were all blown away at the time, like, what is this cool thing that's happening? And to be fair, that first game holds a special part in my heart, but it's essentially a glorified tech demo. But they've had moments throughout history where they've done unique things, and it makes me sad that we're here at this point for this studio.
Yeah.
We'll see what happens in the future. Small little blurb. The executive producer for Assassin's Creed, Mark Alexis Cote, which, if that's how you pronounce it, great. If not, I'm sorry. Actually left the company after 20 years. He started as a software engineer in 2005. In 2008, he was lead level designer for Assassin's Creed Brotherhood and has produced every Assassin's Creed since 2012. So, maybe with new leadership, maybe we'll get some new fresh ideas. Maybe.
We can hope.
I mean, all we have is hope, right?
True.
All right. All right. Anyways, that's it for that section. Let's move on to lab work. So, with lab work, big releases will always dominate the news cycle for better or worse, and this segment will be dedicated to looking at those highly anticipated games.
Yeah, for sure. We want to focus on the discussions and experiences surrounding those big launches, and we can take a look at the sales numbers, expectations, and if there have been any pleasant or unpleasant surprises.
I mean, it's... sorry, just to bring this up real quick. We talked about Borderlands, and we're kind of a little far out from it, so I'm not sure we'll do a full segment on it. But just a little blurb here in this section. I don't know if you saw, but Borderlands 4 is already on a 20% sale on Steam. I don't know if you saw that.
I did see that, and I made many jokes about it.
Yeah, so, I mean, that would have been a perfect candidate for this, but we kind of had already passed that kind of full-fledged launch initially, so we didn't want to make a whole episode about Borderlands, but I thought that would just bring up here. But the game that did just come out, Battlefield 6, which released on October 10th, we can go into, especially because that's what I spent my entire weekend on. But anyways, some numbers first. An estimated 6.5 million copies were sold in the first few days across all platforms. PS5 sold 1.5, Xbox sold 1.2, and Steam sold 3.5 million copies, which those 3.5 million copies accounts for 65.7% of all sales, which generated over 220 million alone on Steam. Peak concurrent player numbers on Steam maxed out at 747,440, making it EA's biggest launch ever on the platform, and surpassing Apex Legends records. This peak also places Battlefield 6 as the 14th highest played game in Steam history, ahead of any and all Call of Duty titles on the platform. Keep in mind, Call of Duty did come out exclusively for a little bit on Battle.net, so you do have that kind of split sales figures, but I don't think Call of Duty ever reached anything close to this on Steam. The game in total so far over a single weekend has grossed $350 million or more. So, successful launch for EA. I didn't necessarily think we'd see that after 2042, because that game was garbage.
I've heard so much about 2042. I've heard so much that I just didn't ever pick it up.
No,
But
you saved yourself.
yeah, so I've heard. I mean, Battlefield 6, I mean, it sounds like it's doing really well, which is impressive to say the least, especially like, I mean, that's a perfect snapback, right?
Oh, 100%. I think this is a great thing to look at for other people in the industry, because Battlefield 6 is a safe title, okay? And I want to emphasize that. It doesn't do anything crazy. It doesn't do necessarily anything new, but what it did do is give people, by and large, a Battlefield game. And oh my gosh, Hero, shocker, you give fans what they want, and all of a sudden you have another good selling game. It's weird that works that way.
What?
I know. Could you think of any other series that could maybe have a return to form in its roots and do better?
Monster Hunter.
Yeah, that would definitely be it. I mean, there's a few other things going well for this. Not only is it a return to form, it also, we talked about in a previous episode how it dropped ray tracing requirements, right? They didn't even put ray tracing in here, and DLSS was just an extra if people wanted to use it. And I did experience that. I play on a 4K monitor, and even on most of my things set at high-ish with a few things on ultra, on a 4K monitor, I was getting 80 to 100 frames, no DLSS.
That's the one thing I was going to ask you, DLSS, frame gen, stuff like that. But that's insane.
Yeah, I mean, considering
Like
you're talking about some large battles too, with a lot of people in it, a lot of particles, a lot of calculations for bullets flying because they're not hit scan, you know?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, for sure. That's impressive. I mean, that's exactly what we're looking for in a game. Everybody take note. Yes, it's great that you can add new features. It's great that you can, have some back of the box feature that's like big and flashy and everything else. But at the end of the day, if I get 30 FPS, it's garbage.
Yeah. Now, to be fair, I am on a Ryzen 5 and a 4080, so it's not like I'm down the card line, but that's still an entire generation back. And again, I'm on a 4K monitor getting those numbers. So like, if you're on a 1440p monitor with a 3070, you're going to just be fine. You're going to be super salient. And
Right.
again, you want to add DLSS on top of that? You absolutely can, but I think the point here is that you don't have to with the performance you're getting.
I think you could even go a step lower, right? I know a lot of people who still have the 20 series cards.
Oh, for
right?
sure.
So if we take it a step lower and go 1080p, I guarantee you'd probably still get those numbers on a 20 series card.
Yeah. I knew, I haven't seen much with the official release, but I at least know with the beta, I saw people saying, hey, I'm playing on a 2070 or 2080 and I'm doing just fine. So now, to keep in mind, some of the settings were definitely turned down a little lower, but I think that's expected when you're talking that generation of card back. But the point is it's still playable. Compare that to Borderlands 4 Randy Pitchford responses to his game, and it's night and day.
Oh, yeah, 100%. I mean, I was just looking up the minimum system requirements, and the minimum system requirements are a 2060.
Yeah, I mean, there you go.
So, yeah, they picked the range of cards that most people still have that aren't upgrading every year or two, right? Because, man, money's rough.
100%.
No one's doing that. I mean, even personally, I generally wait 3 to 5 years, depending on jumps in technology, right?
Oh, for sure. I to be fair, I do have a little bit of a nicer job, so I understand that I am privileged to be able to turn around and pick up a new card every generation and sell my old one, and then do a new computer every 7 to 8 years, right? So I'm definitely privileged in that fact, but I think the point is You are allowing people to hold onto their hardware and still experience your game and still are able to have fun without saying, "Hey, pores, get better stuff." So,
I still can't believe he said that.
dude, to be fair, he didn't specifically say that. Don't anyone quote us, but essentially what it boiled down to was, yeah, get good, get money, stop being poor, buy better stuff. I'm on a 5090 and it's fine.
I mean, look, he literally said Borderlands 4 is a premium game for premium gamers. If that's not stop being poor, just be better, I don't know what is.
I mean, you are right. It's ridiculous. And keep in mind, we're only talking about this game. Another big game, which we haven't talked about because we'll probably do that the next course, but Arc Raiders. I don't know if you've seen those requirements for that game, but I think they're even lower than Battlefield 6's. And that game also looks fantastic and is going to be playable on a wide variety of machines. They put out a whole DLS trailer, which shows people giving above 100 frames and then going, like, hey, you're getting like 140 frames. Do you want 440? Here, have fun. So with DLS, we'll talk more about that as that game gets closer. But like, I'm glad that we're seeing a new trend as opposed to Randy Pitchford's vision of the future. So
I looked up the specs because I was just curious. Man, the recommended is a 2070.
For Arc Raiders?
Yes.
Yeah.
And the minimum is a 1050 Ti. They went far back.
Yeah, they did. Which, again, though, that's great. Like, let people experience your game. Here's the thing. All you have to do is avoid the pitfalls where your game suffers because of the hardware limitations, right? As long as you're avoiding that, then make it usable on the widest variety of hardware you can. And whatever it doesn't work on, it doesn't work on. As long as you're not going the Randy Pitchford route. I can't stress that enough. Don't go that route.
I mean, like, since we talked about Arc Raiders, I'll bring up Delta Force, right?
Sure.
Same thing. It had really good graphics. Like, they were obviously stylized, but it ran smooth, which is exactly what you want in a PvP shooter. And it didn't have any significant bugs that weren't patched out very quickly.
No.
And like, it's an always online game, so expecting no bugs is kind of impossible. But I mean, being a fan of Delta Force before I just got really sick of the new guy that they put in with the shield, I absolutely love extraction shooters. They get my heart racing, and I don't know what it is. I think it's probably gear fear, to be honest.
I mean, look, are we playing Arc Raiders then? I'm down, bro.
Yes. Oh yeah. I was like, I'm literally staring at it. It's in my cart. I'm about to buy it.
Just so you know, there is we didn't mention this. I should mention this. Sorry, this wasn't in the announcements. There is a stress test this weekend. So anybody that wants to play, it's going to be available for free. They've said no codes. Hop in, check out the game, help them stress test the servers, and if you like it, great. The base version is $40. So go nuts.
I mean, that's not bad.
But I mean, if you're picking it up anyways, we could always just save our game time.
Oh yeah, for sure. Like, I'm looking at the trailer though, right?
Uh-huh.
And I'm not seeing the difference between a trailer like this and, I don't know, Mass Effect, right? Sure. Like, they look very similar. The quality looks like it's there. You know, maybe it's not in-engine rendered, but...
Well, you know what I described it as? Cross Bungie with Horizon Zero Dawn. Just from the looks. Gameplay's a little different. But from the looks, I would say take Bungie. Take Destiny and combine it with Horizon Zero Dawn. And I feel like that's the visuals that you're getting.
That's fair. I haven't looked into it much, but I really wonder if there will be like NPCs that are human. or if it's really just going to be robots, and then all humans that you see are enemy players. Because like that's one of the main problems I already had with like Tarkov and Delta Force. I see an AI, right? And I'm like, oh, that's just AI. I don't really have to worry about it. Turns out it's actually a player dressed like AI.
Well, I haven't seen any humanoid a robot enemies. So maybe there's some, but all the trailers, it looks like the robot enemies are, NPCs are distinctly robots. So we'll see. But yeah, we could try that.
We will give a full breakdown
when that game comes
of
out
our
on
time.
October 30th. Yeah.
Correct.
All right. Well, I've already purchased it as well, so we'll be ready and willing to go. Our friend's also picking it up too. So, anyways, back to Battlefield after we went on that tangent. I would say, you talked about bugs in Delta Force, right? There are definitely some in the Battlefield experience. However, compared to what a buggy mess games have been recently, i.e., we constantly pick on it, Borderlands 4, and take your pick on any other game, it is infinitely acceptable. There are definitely some mission bugs where some mission progress is wonky, or honestly, even just how it's described is wonky. Like I had one where it was like do assault rifle damage and it had 300, and it was do assault rifle damage and it had 10,000. And I'm pretty sure the first one was specifically damage with an assault rifle that gets you a kill, as opposed to the 10,000. So there's a few things that they definitely need to iron out with some bugs. There was, and actually specifically, and I have a clip of it, I actually got a registration bug where apparently there's a combination of attachments which just every now and then cause your gun to do 0 damage, even when the bullets are flying out of it and hitting an enemy. Thankfully, they actually hotfixed that one after 24 hours after it being reported. So that's good that they're paying attention. And I would say one of the biggest bugs that we had was a specific class progress bug where you're supposed to heal teammates from a dropped item, but it would only count the first game after you've loaded up. So if you load up Battlefield 6, that first game, that's the only game where it would count. If you want it to count again, you'd have to quit the entire game. So my friend and I ended up cheesing it. And I'm so sorry if we were on your team because we just wanted to get past this. But we spawned into a game and just went in a corner, each of us dropped down a healing bag, and then we would just grenade ourselves so that we could heal on each person's bag. That was the most annoying bug I encountered. And again, if we were on your team, I'm sorry. Blame the game. The mission is bugged. So blame EA. But to be fair, obviously not a lot of huge issues here. A couple crashes, but between my friend and I, we played 70 hours. And I think a few crashes on a launch game in 70 hours is okay. Obviously, you don't want to see any, but compared to a game losing performance after an hour and having to restart it every time, I'll accept it. Anyways, I think the biggest thing that I didn't encounter was apparently people who bought the game through the EA store, the EA app, which, why on PC are you not buying it on Steam? I don't know why you would give EA your money directly. Steam has great return policies, great support. Buy it on Steam. Anyways, I wasn't the only one that disagreed with that, because people couldn't actually get into the game if they bought it on EA's platform. And it was so bad that the Battlefield director, Vince Zampella, was actually quoted as saying, refund the game and go buy it on Steam, which is wild to me.
Yeah. Yeah, it is wild, because that means they literally lose 30% of that sale.
Yep. And that's the main guy. That's the director at EA, the guy that was, the father of Medal of Honor games, the father of not the father of Medal of Honor games, but a big part of the Medal of Honor games, the father of Call of Duty, the father of Apex. He's now the head of the Battlefield Studios games. Like, this is the guys being like, I want you to play my game, just refund it, go buy it on Steam. It's the better platform anyways. As compensation, if you kept your copy on the EA app, which again, why would you? The people were given a lot of XP boosts as compensation, but they couldn't get into the game for like a full day. So I don't know why you kept it. In terms of gameplay, one of the biggest things that does need to be changed, and they've actually recently, today or yesterday, acknowledged that it is an extra unintended bug. Do you know what bloom is on first-person shooters?
Of course.
Perfect. So for anyone who doesn't know, because Heru knows, so now I can't segue into that. So anyone who doesn't know, bloom is basically RNG spread. Where it can happen if you've gotten shot. It's usually applied to hip fire. A lot of competitive shooters like Valorant or CS don't use bloom. It's just a straight pattern, and there's aim punch. So if you get shot, if your aim just is physically moving, essentially. Bloom is where it's just, again, like a cone in front of you, some RNG, where the bullets are going to go to random spots around where you're aiming. Which is a problem when you're aiming down sights, because it really shouldn't be doing it at all, and if it's going to, it needs to be a finite amount, but it's actually happening pretty badly. So that's a bug that they've acknowledged that they need to fix, because that does heavily affect a shooter. If you're aiming down sight and your bullets are going in a 10-foot, not 10 foot, but at range, you're basically going to miss the guy or hit him once or twice. So definitely need to fix that. They have also announced the roadmap for content for Battlefield 6 with a BR mode sometime at the end of the month, around the launch of Arc Raiders, supposedly beating it by a couple days. We'll see what happens with that. And it should be free. And by the end of the year, there'll be 3 new maps, a handful of weapons, attachments, and vehicles, and a limited time mode in December, which looks like a snowy Brooklyn. I don't know what else it'll entail, so that looks fun. I look forward to all that content.
I always love snow maps in general.
Oh, absolutely.
But let's get into the meat of it. How about your expectations of this game?
Oh, well, they were set pretty high by the beta. So already sky high because they put their best foot forward. And for the most part, other than those bugs that I talked about, I think they delivered. It, like I said, it's a safe Battlefield game, but it gives me that Battlefield feel. It's what I've wanted. You go in, the gunplay feels good. So far, most of the maps feel good. There are still some things to fix. There's specifically a map that we played, my friend and I played, where there's a skyscraper next to one of the capture points. Now, normally this would be fine, Heru, except for the fact that for some reason, you can defend and capture that zone from the top of the skyscraper. The skyscraper does not have any sort of elevator or stairs that lead to the top. So, in a game with helicopters or other unintended things that allow you to gain elevation, like the method that I figured out where there was a little kind of cavity where you could put up ladders back and forth and get all the way to the top. No one can kill you unless they get their own helicopter. You could just sit up there the entire time. You can see most of the map, snipe anyone and everyone, or just put on an assault rifle with an ACOG and single fire people to death, and you could defend that point the entire time. That map with that point right now is broken. My friend and I constantly are abusing it. Straight up, the first thing I do is take a class with a respawn beacon, fly a helicopter up there, put it down, and my friend's a healer, and we just survived the entire map up there. I think I literally had a game where I went 42-2, just sitting on top of that skyscraper and shooting down at people. I'm not going to lie. I abused the crap out of it because it had been done to me once, and I'm not going to let anybody else do it to me. And until they fix it, I'm going to abuse the crap out of it.
Oh, 100%. I mean, it's a classic Z-axis problem, right? A lot of problems happen like that because you don't necessarily want to make, a limited dome-shaped capture point. But if you have a skyscraper within the capture point, you're going to want to make that limited.
There's a couple ways to fix this, right? Sorry, continue.
Oh, okay. So the problem is it depends on how they designed the capture points, because if they designed those capture points with no Z-axis restriction, then they have to go in and redesign the object for all capture points. It can't just change just one, right?
Sure.
So they have to go in and actually redesign it. If they did put some kind of Z-axis maximum built into that object, then all they have to do is just pull it down for that one object.
Yeah. I'm 100% with you. That's fix one, right? Change the elevation for the capture zone for that object. Option 2 is put in some stairs or elevators all the way to the top. Just allow people to get to the top to fight it out, right? Without needing a helicopter or building an elaborate structure to get to the top that anyone could kill you at any point. Option 3, which, keep in mind, Battlefield has destruction, is just make that skyscraper destructible. Leave it, let people capture from the top, and if people get sick of it, guess what? Start C4ing the bottom floor and bring that baby down.
Look, I'm just saying, I don't know anything about Battlefield, especially this one. If it falls on you, do you take damage?
Yeah, so when buildings break apart and or like if a turret is falling down from a tank, it can crush you and kill you, yeah.
Heck yeah.
So, yeah, but just allow that building to be brought down. I think that's more fun than you have a pile of rubble in the middle that still offers cover, right? So I would say that would be the more fun and correct way to fix it, but I doubt that that's what they're going to go with because they would have to make sure the entirety of the building's destructible, which would be more programming.
Right.
But
yeah, for sure.
Outside of that, feels good, feels like a Battlefield game, some bugs, some things to fix. The biggest thing, though, that I love is there's silly stuff going on, which is when you have a big sandbox, you know, with a lot of people, a lot of vehicles, a lot of buildings, destructible stuff, I want to see silly things happening. I've already been seeing clips of people taking a sledgehammer and walking up behind snipers on roofs and just breaking out the floor under them. And just like I pointed out, the snipers fall. They either die from the fall or they get crushed by the rubble that's falling with them, which is endlessly entertaining. There's also been a bug where you can go step onto a recon drone and hit it with a sledgehammer, and you just shoot up into the air. And you can kind of stay on the drone as it slowly falls down, and you can snipe from it, which is silly, and I'm sure that'll be fixed. But for the moment, it's entertaining. That same sledgehammer that I told you about, you can actually damage tanks with it. So I saw someone jump onto a tank that had no infantry support and just start beating the tank to death with the sledgehammer, and he destroyed it. It was hilarious. But
you gotta send me that clip.
I'll find it. I bookmarked it.
I need to see it.
It's those types of fun things. You give me tools, you give me a sandbox, let people go have their fun, right? I think that's what a lot of games are missing, and I think that's what this game does well, is let people have fun.
Yep.
Alrighty. Well, I think we've spent enough on that and our tangent on other games in this section, so we'll officially move on to Shop Class. All right, Shop Class. We talked about a little bit of what that is last week. We're talking about software, hardware, all that type of thing, and we're continuing a little bit of that Battlefield discussion in the form of TPM 2.0, which, for those who don't know, is Trusted Platform Module and Secure Boot Requirements for PC games, including the recently released Battlefield 6 and the upcoming Call of Duty Black Ops 7. But both require TPM 2.0 enabled for you to play it. And a lot of AAA games are now mandating that, and it looks like that's the way of the future. Now, those games aren't the only ones. Valorant, which, released a while ago, already had it. The infamous Battlefield 2042 had secure boot requirements, but not necessarily TPM 2.0. And then a few other games like the Finals, Fortnite, and Counter-Strike Faceit servers all have various secure boot requirements. Specifically, though, you're starting to see TPM 2.0 being the required thing. And for hardware-wise, it's going to require an Intel 8th generation or newer, and an AMD Ryzen 2000 series or newer, Windows 10 or newer as well. And your BIOS will have to have UEFI boot mode and secure boot capabilities. You can see the writing on the wall. because specifically Steam Beta actually now includes a TPM and secure boot detection for people to actually see if they're compatible or if their games are going to require it. And then specifically in Battlefield 6's case, it actually looks like it's been effective, at least initially. I know there were reports of cheaters in the beta, but I don't think you want to necessarily ban large swaths of people in a beta because A, it's free, people are just going to come back, and B, you give up the ghost, right? You're giving up early that they've been detected. You want to wait until they've bought the game, you've got the money, and then ban them, making it double extra hurt. Anyways, specifically, Chronos Zen users were actually really getting 3-day temporary bans, and some of people were actually posting screenshots of receiving permanent bans for severe infractions. And specifically, players would see, quote, "Your account has been disabled. Chronos Zen activity on this account has violated EA's user agreement." And in response, Chronos Zen developers, the developers themselves, publicly advised users to pause the usage of their products until they could figure out how to bypass the system or what exactly was going on, and asked for people to refrain discussing the bans to avoid drawing EA's attention. Which is wild to me. Yeah.
Oh, man.
Yeah, so,
don't tell Dad.
Yeah, it's pretty much, it's like, guys, don't talk about it. If you talk about it, they're going to know about it. It's going to bring more attention to us. Here's the thing. Even other major paid cheat providers have similarly warned customers to not use their services in Battlefield 6 because of the high detection rates and the swift suspensions. So, at least for the moment, it is looking like it is effective. We'll see how that continues into the future, right? It's always an arms race. I think the big thing for me that I want to discuss about this with you is, have you seen any issues with TPM 2.0? Do you know if you have it enabled?
So I don't think I have TPM 2.0, but I know I have Secure Boot. Because that's I believe Secure Boot is required for Windows 11 ultimately, right?
Yes, I believe so. Yes.
Yeah. So then it's definitely enabled. I'm on Windows 11. But TPM 2.0, if I literally just look at the battle or the Call of Duty Black Ops 7 Steam page, it literally says Secure Boot and TPM 2.0 not detected.
Yeah, I mean,
so one of those is off.
So, so first of all, I have a Gigabyte motherboard, and I want to say, my BIOS UI experience with Gigabyte motherboards has been god awful. The latest example is that I had TPM 2.0 enabled. I had it enabled, but there was apparently a bug or glitch that even though I had it enabled, Windows couldn't see it. And it's common enough that my friend who plays Battlefield with me had the same exact problem. So before we played the beta, we had to do a whole bunch of troubleshooting to figure out what was going on. And guess the fix. Guess.
I'm gonna go with disable it and then re-enable it.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's the fix. The classic IT. Turn it off and turn it on again. I was so annoyed. It's if every time that I don't live by that motto, it comes back to bite me.
Yep.
Oh my gosh. I hated it so much. I just don't understand why it was a problem. Anyways, I also had an acquaintance on my Discord reach out to me. And again, this is for the beta when it came out, because he wanted to play the beta, but he's not a computer person. And I think that's the big thing here, is you have a lot of PC people who buy pre-built PCs or they get a PC from a friend and they don't have the knowledge of how to enable this. And they're just not computer people. Like for some of these people, getting to the BIOS is an achievement. And I think that's going to be a concern for a lot of games moving forward when they have to get this on for newer games, especially PvP ones. There's you could easily screw up your boot, brick your computer.
Oh yeah, 100%. I think more than anything, I think the people who need to solve this problem is Windows. They need to
Fair.
find an easy way to turn that on.
I mean, doesn't that defeat the purpose of the security, though? If it's easily turn-onable within Windows, that's something that malware could take advantage of, right?
That's fair.
So it's a catch-22, right?
Yeah, you're not wrong.
So I just expect to hear from friends in the future who found out that I helped one friend, and now I'm going to be the IT guy for my friend group that helps them turn TPM 2.0 on in all of
Just
their
don't send them to me.
Why not?
I have too much other IT stuff I have to deal with. Please no.
Yeah, but you're so good at it. I'm just going to give him your details. Look, this guy's much
Literally
better than me. It's definitely his job. He's so good at it. But so expect to see that in the future. And to be honest, it's not necessarily that scary. There's plenty of guides out there. Just pull up your motherboard and look for videos out there. Put it into AI. Double check any of the AI results you get. But I'm truly saying it's not that difficult. Just be very careful what you're doing. Go slow. Double check everything you're changing. I think you'll be fine. All right. Outside of that, the other big story that we wanted to get to, and we're probably going to have to go through this one a little quicker. In October, Unity disclosed a major security vulnerability that they had for years. And it was a major vulnerability. I'm not going to give you the full name, but it was discovered in Unity games built with versions 2017.1 or later. It affected Android, Windows, Linux, and Mac OS platforms, so essentially everything. And the flaw allowed malicious code injection via command line arguments in Unity applications, posing a high risk to millions of people worldwide. With a CVSS score of 8.4, which is high severity, and it allowed arbitrary code execution and information access. Which...
Man, that's wild. Version 2017?
Yep.
It was there for 8 years? Math is hard.
Yep. No, you're 100%. That's it. 8 years it existed.
That's wild.
It's such a bad vulnerability that multiple games, including Obsidian's Pillars of Eternity 2, Deadfire, versions of Grounded 2, and even a couple avowed game products, I think. I don't think it was the game itself, but like the art book, all had to be taken offline so that they could be patched and fixed before put back out, because that's how bad the vulnerability is. Microsoft and Steam implemented immediate protections, and Unity released patch notes and tools enabling developers to secure the games. Microsoft actually urged users to uninstall Unity games until they received security patches. And I think this underscores the challenges of maintaining security in widely used game engines, especially when you're supporting cross-platform and legacy titles.
So for those who don't know, when you choose a game engine for your game, you also choose a version. So, and upgrading that version can be rather difficult depending on the things that you've put into your game, especially these bigger companies that have designed extra features that they've kind of implanted into their game that don't necessarily come with the engine. So if you're thinking, why are these people still on Unity version 2017? Well, that's because they started the development 8 years ago or whatever. They're not going to upgrade to version 2018 or some other higher number. That's just not realistic for a game that's already in existence.
No, I mean, it's a one step forward, 2 steps back, right? Like if you upgrade your engine, you're going to break a whole bunch of things, even though you may get access to some nicer things. So it's just not necessarily worth it. And this is a huge problem that existed for years. This whole thing has kind of culminated into some issues with Unity. And we'll kind of get into those, but just to kind of give you some numbers, approximately 50% of games released on Steam by the numbers are on Unity, and across all platforms, they have a 48% market share. Unity is the engine behind 71% of the top 1,000 mobile games globally, and it remains popular amongst smaller and indie titles, although Unreal Engine 5 has gained some ground with large AAA titles, of which we've seen its own share of problems, although not necessarily specifically this type of security vulnerability. And this kind of thing shows the fragmentation on the market, with Godot and GameMaker growing modestly amongst the smaller game and indie game market, but Unity and Unreal Engine remain the core pillars of game development.
Not to be that guy, but it's Godot. Anyways,
Fine.
I do agree with you. I dislike the game engine as a service model. I would much prefer, and I know it would increase production times like mad, but I would much prefer big developers like this build their own engines, because then they can maintain them themselves.
Oh, for sure. I mean, well, that's technically what a lot of these companies had that they went away from, right? Like DICE had the Frostbite engine, and the Mass Effect games were built on some older engines, and then they've all kind of been switching over to Unreal Engine 5. I mean, God, what was the big scandal? Oh, Halo Infinite. What is supposedly the last game that won't be on an Unreal Engine game, So like apparently the next Halo game is going to be on Unreal Engine 5, which there's a whole discussion we could have about the Halo series. But
true.
But the point is that a lot of these are switching over, and it's a little homogenous, right? I mean, one of the coolest things was that Kojima and his team, when they were at Konami for Metal Gear Solid 5, built in its entirety their own engine called, what was it, the Foxfire engine? I apologies if that's not the correct name. But they built their own engine, and that game looked great. And then the whole Konami thing happened, and it was kind of abandoned except for a follow-up title that nobody liked. But that's kind of where we're seeing the industry going, is this homogenous single engine type of game development, which I always talk about. One of the worst things that you can do in the market is not have competition. So we'll see how that goes.
Yep. And you were right. It is the Fox engine.
Is it? Yeah. Well, I said Foxfire, but it's just the Fox engine.
Yeah, it's just Fox engine.
Well, that makes sense. I mean, he's got the whole thing in all of the Metal Gear games, so I'm not surprised. But aside from that, aside from those numbers, this is indicative of problems that Unity is dealing with at the moment. They've had major layoffs since 2022, with over 3,200 employees that have been laid off, driven by previous overexpansion, economic pressures, controversial policy missteps, like the runtime free announcement in late 2023, if anyone remembers that. And that was, I believe that was the one where they were talking about taking a cut of game sales, like changing their policy, which horrible decision. The layoffs have impacted developer trust, but have allowed Unity to refocus on its core engine business. Specifically, you're talking about a strategic reset away from broader creative tech ambitions and more towards specifically the engine focus in like automotive and the healthcare sectors, basically things outside of gaming. And Unity's recent financial performance in 2025 has actually been decently strong, indicating that there is recovery and the investors are enjoying this new direction. I don't know what that means for gaming in the long run. So,
yeah, I'm not a fan of Unity or Unreal, but that's just me.
I mean, I liked it back in the day as an easily accessible thing for people to work on and build their indie games, but it just seems like it's grown into a monstrosity.
Yes. Well, I mean, when capitalism plays its part, You will do anything to make money.
Sure. Well, and it delivers on a market need, right? At the time, you had these we just talked about it, right? You had these big engines that, had big back end requirements or big upfront requirements, and Unity was a low barrier to entry that people could afford and required no tell me if I'm wrong, but I don't believe it required any sort of background payments unless you got like super big or something. But
Yeah,
it was kind of the perfect niche for indie developers.
yeah, it was something like that. I want to say it's like a million, like until you make like $1 million or something, you don't actually have to purchase an enterprise license, something like that.
Yeah. But the point being is, like there was a need in the market, this fit it, and then it's grown from there. And as we just talked about, lack of competition is bad for the market. That's when things deteriorate. And you've had that, and Unity's definitely grown a little too big for their britches.
Agreed.
All right. With that being said, we did have a couple more things to talk about, but we're kind of running low on time, so we'll move those to next week. We're going to get into some quick stuff in business and econ. All right. As I always said, we are not business or econ people at all, but we're going to dive into a little bit of the numbers. There was actually supposedly not an Asus ROG Xbox handheld, but an official Xbox handheld that had actually been planned that was canceled. So apparently it was a dedicated handheld console that was canceled after AMD required a commitment to sell at least 10 million units, which was a target that was deemed unattainable given the recent performance of PC handhelds. The AMD demand was inside was a Kepler L2 revealed that Xbox would need to guarantee sales of 10 million units before production, which far exceeded anything that had happened on the market up to that point.
10 million units doesn't really seem like that much for something that would be like good, right? But yeah, I mean, most people are playing on PC at this point, I think.
Well, so I think from the outside you are correct, but let me throw some numbers at you that put that 10 million into perspective. So the Steam Deck up to this point has sold 3.7 to 4 million units. Oh, that's over 3 years. And we're talking about 10 million units from Xbox. You throw in the rest of the PC handhelds. That's all of them. The Lenovo's, the Asus ROG Allies, the MSI Claws. So you kind of lump all of them together and you get another 6 million units. So between all of the Steam Deck units and all of the rest of the units, you are at 10 million.
Okay,
so I feel like the guaranteed of 10 million units is a lofty number, especially when you're talking about Xbox not being the name in PC gaming, right? Yes, we all play on Windows, but when you talk about PC gaming, what is it that we always talk about? We talk about Steam, right? So you're talking about an Xbox brand that's got to break into essentially the PC gaming market because that's kind of what you're building. And even the Steam Deck only sold 4 million units. And the Xbox brand isn't strong right now, so
that's so true. I wonder though how much of Steam Deck's lack of adoption was because Valve is notorious for failing to support hardware they release.
I mean, that's fair, but they did update to the OLED version, and those handhelds had a really nice right to repair, and they have all kinds of videos, in parts and pieces if people want to modify. So I think their perspective on this one was, hey, it's your hardware, do with it what you want.
Yeah, that's entirely fair.
Oh, and just to be clear here, to clarify this number, in case anyone follows up on this, I was wrong. That 6 million number includes the Steam Deck. So
Oh,
it's not
jeez.
10 million. It's only 6 million amongst all PC handhelds.
Yeah,
So
it's not happening.
yeah. So I mean, again, it's not Nintendo. It's not the Switch, right? Nintendo has always been in the handheld market, so I don't think there was any worry about Nintendo succeeding in that. But I think to guarantee 10 million of an Xbox branded handheld was definitely a lot. I think it was too much to ask. So obviously that switched into them partnering with the Asus ROG Ally, which I definitely could see being a successful market, in the future, as basically you have a different developer build the hardware, you create the software, and hopefully it's a nice kumbaya piece of kit that we can all enjoy. We'll see
Yeah.
if that actually happens.
Splitting the costs.
Basically. I mean, demand for the Ally Xbox handheld has been pretty high, even considering it's $600 and $1,000. So we'll see how it goes. Maybe it'll surprise us all and they'll actually hit 10 million units.
Yeah, I
Who
mean,
knows?
maybe. I mean, the Switch has sold well over 10 million. So,
Yeah. You're not wrong. Well, anyways, just to kind of blast through here, we talked about Xbox being removed from from Costco stores. It actually caused a bit of a fervor as rumors and specifically stuff popping up on Reddit claimed that Target and Walmart stores were removing stock as well. But that is not true. The decision for Costco was described as a standalone business decision. Microsoft and Target actually put out different statements refuting that was happening. They both issued official statements saying, hey, Xbox hardware will remain available in store and online. So
it's always been kind of weird to me that like Costco and Sam's Club actually stock Xboxes and PlayStations anyways.
oh, 100%. Here's the thing. I think a lot of people are buying those online, but there's a lot of people that shop at those stores where it's an easy pickup, right? Especially if it's because a lot of them will have bundle deals, right? That's an easy pickup for a parent or something to pick it up, for the holidays
Yeah, that's fair.
or birthday gift. Anyways, finishing with the Microsoft news. The Halo Studios, which is obviously the team behind Halo Infinite, which has been rebranded and rebranded and rebranded into now Halo Studios, is actually rumored to be facing significant internal challenges following some recent leadership changes and rumored layoffs. I want to throw a quote at you. This is from Glenn Israel, a veteran art director who left Halo Studios after 17 years of working across Bungie, 343, and, again, Halo Studios. Quote, as of today, and after 17 long years, I am officially no longer contributing to the Halo universe. There's little more I can say for the moment, though I intend to share this particular story in its entirety when it's absolutely safe to do so next year. In the meantime, I have a message for anyone and everyone who needs to hear it. I know that the state of our industry seems dire, but never forget that you are free to choose. No illusion of security, no promise of wealth or fame or power is worth trading away your health, your dignity, your ethics, or values. No one can force you to. And make sure you stay strong, take evidence when necessary, and find where you belong. As always, I'll be here if you need to talk, end quote. Considering we just had the story about the union that's suing the Mind's Eye studio, I think it's very telling. I'll be interested to see what he talks about in a year. It's very cryptic.
Oh, I agree. I mean, it's clearly going to be something that's pretty damning. At least that's what I'm kind of reading between the lines for on here. The biggest thing, I hope he's writing it down now.
True.
Right?
Yeah, right.
When it's fresh so that he can go back to it, put it all together, and then just release it to the public when whatever NDA / whatever is gone, right?
Oh, yeah. I feel like people just need to make sure their imaginations don't run wild, because what I'm imagining is probably some wild mismanagement. But he does talk about dignity, ethics, and values, so
And health.
I don't know. We'll see. Yeah. Well, but the
Like-
health thing I would assume comes from like overtime and stuff, but it could be something else. But
Yeah,
point
it's probably
being
crunch.
yeah, 100%. Well, so we'll see what comes of that. We'll see if maybe Microsoft hires the same ninjas that Nintendo has, and hopefully he gets it all written down, and we get to hear in a year what the crazy story is. But this came shortly after the chief of staff, Melissa Boone, also left the studio. Gaming Insider confirmed that from sources inside Halo Studios that the studio is struggling with leadership problems, and according to them, 9 out of 10 developers on the art team have departed recently.
Wow.
Yeah, it's I mean, that's a big blow to art team, or it's just any portion of any development team in general. 90% turnover is insane.
Yeah. Hey guys, we lost 90% of the staff. I'm going to need this one dude to do 9 people's jobs plus his own. Okay, good luck.
Yeah. We'll see how that goes. For all of us, because again, we all love a healthy industry. I would love for, there to be good Call of Duty games. I would love for there to be good Battlefield games. I'd love for there to be good Halo games. So hopefully this is a wake up for the studio and Microsoft in general. I'm not going to hold my breath. We'll see what he has to talk about in a year, but it's crazy kind of where we are.
Agreed.
Alrighty. Well, we definitely have more to talk about, but we kind of have run long, so I think we're just going to call it there for the day. Heru, is there anything else you want to mention?
No, not really. We can get into more next week.
Alrighty. Well, people, close your books and pack those bags. That's all we have time for this week. We hope you enjoy your time off, and we look forward to your participation in the next course. Peace.
Goodbye.